Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies, inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 podcast, available wherever you're listening now.
Welcome to Wake Up Heavy, the world's greatest horror movie podcast.
That doesn't sound right.
I like that new intro, Cleo, even if it is a tad hyperbolic. But like they say, fake it till you make it, baby.
What are you even talking about?
Hello, and welcome to the 1-year anniversary of Wake Up Heavy. And yes, I know that it's cheesy to put "wah" in front of everything, but when it works, I do it, and cheesiness be damned. 1-year anniversary. It feels much longer. No, it actually doesn't. I'm actually surprised that this much time has passed. I'm glad I'm still around and doing this and enjoying it. And hopefully others are enjoying it. And a shout out to all new listeners. I wish I could read some reviews, some new reviews on this episode, but I haven't gotten any. But I know that I picked up some listeners from having Mike White on the show, and I'm grateful for that. And that's one reason to have more seasoned podcasters or journalists or movie fans that have a following themselves. It's an important tool to use, I think. Plus, having someone like Mike on the show is just fun because he knows what the hell he's talking about. And he has a really pleasant delivery, so that's awesome to just sit and listen to that. But for those that came via the projection booth or via Mike's appearances on the show and stuck around, thank you. Having my friend Ronnie on the show and having Sam Panico on the show brought other people in, and if you're sticking around, awesome. For everybody else who has discovered it through social media, I can't really think of another way that you would have discovered it. Thank you also for sticking around and listening to episodes. You know, I do look at the stats, and when I see a particular city pop up again and again, then I see that I've connected with someone, and that's a great feeling. Just a note of clarification, this is going to be a Frankenstein episode. I recorded quite a bit of this in June during my hiatus, along with the beginnings of an episode on The Tenant, which was going to be Season 2, Episode 3. And then I had the idea for this episode to invite people to send in questions or comments. That didn't happen. I re-listened to what I recorded in June and liked most of it, so I am keeping most of it and adding a few things. So you may hear some variations in recording, and you may hear about the Tenant episode, which has been shelved for now. It may reappear. There may also be a few things that I mentioned in July episodes because I was assuming that I was going to redo this, so sorry for the repetition. Hopefully it's not all too terribly confusing. All right then, let's get into these hard-hitting questions, and hopefully I have some decent answers. Hit me with it, kiddo.
That's weird. What is the hardest part of doing the podcast? What's the easiest?
Well, the hardest part is definitely the editing, and not so much, it's not hard, it's tedious, it's time-consuming, it gives me a headache after a while. For every minute of recording, I would say there's a good 3 minutes, and that may be lowballing it a little bit. A good 3 minutes of editing, maybe more. Maybe it's more like 5. I mean, it just depends on what you're trying to fix. There's a lot of cutting and deleting and then combining, but sometimes it gets trickier than that, and it just takes up a lot of time. If I had an editor, that would be a godsend, but no, I do everything myself. Recording, editing. I'm sure that's apparent when you listen to the show, but I am kind of amazed sometimes when I see these shows that have all these people doing mixing, doing editing, doing all these different things. You know, they sound great. I don't think mine sounds horrible or anything, but it would be nice to be able to pass some of this stuff off to someone else, and that's most likely never going to happen. Which is fine. I enjoy the tinkering, so the easiest part, I guess, is just the flapjaw, the talking. Although my brain can, it's a lot different. I kind of compare it to watching Jeopardy and being a contestant on Jeopardy. And I've never been a contestant on Jeopardy, although I have taken the online test I don't know how many times now. But, you sit there and you watch it and you can rattle off all the answers. And sometimes I just get so irritated with contestants on there who don't seem like they've ever watched the show before. But I understand it's the pressure of actually being there. And so it kind of happens to me when I have all these ideas in my head. I write notes down. I'm doing the PowerPoint stuff now. And when I sit to talk, stuff gets jumbled up and messed up and I miss those points. And I think about them later. Or like when you used to go to the record store, and the second you walked through the door, you forgot all about the music and the musicians that you were planning on looking at. And that used to happen to me all the time. It's like, why am I here? Music? What's that? I guess the easiest part is the talking. Maybe it's the research, actually, and watching the films. Yeah, that's the easiest part, watching the damn movie.
Let's roll the footage. Which episode is your favorite? Which episode is your least favorite?
Okay, that's tough. That's like making me decide which kid I like the most. Oh yeah, I only have one. Well, that's making me decide between you, the dog, and the cat.
That doesn't sound right.
There's good things and bad things about all of them. I enjoy the introductory episode because that was another one that you were on. There's parts about each that I like. I think if I had to pick one, which I will do, it would be Black Christmas, only because of all the episodes from season 1, the full episodes, that has the fewest plays. And I think it's a pretty decent episode. I'm just going to say that one so that maybe it generates some more plays for that poor little episode that is so lonely and feels neglected. Least favorite. Ooh, that's even... I have trouble with the Dead and Buried episode because... And I didn't really realize it at the time. I kind of realized it at the time that was really just a rehashing of the plot of the movie, which was never my intent for the show. There were so many little points that... And I think this is part of, the bad thing about doing this yourself without a co-host or a guest sometimes, is that there were all these little points spread throughout the film that I wanted to make sure I got to, and I just kind of went through the actual plot of the film to get to those points. So that one was a little disappointing. There was some fun stuff in there still. That's kind of where the Murder, She Wrote stuff started.
Murder, She Wrote rules.
And I did that whole section with all those questions coming in and out of the different sides of the speakers and all that. It was kind of fun to play around with that. I don't know how effective it was, but I enjoyed doing it.
What are you even talking about? Which movie has been the easiest to talk about, and which movie has been the hardest?
Okay, I crafted these questions for you, if that wasn't apparent to anybody that's listening. And why did I make these so hard? The easiest episode, I think the thing that came out the quickest and easiest and shortest is the Why Didn't I Rent This? The first one on The Beast Within. I think it's like 12 minutes long, and I've listened to it and think, boy, you can be brief and basically get the whole idea out there quickly. I'm not really using that as a guideline, obviously. Yeah, that was probably super easy to do. I knew that I wanted to keep it under 15 minutes, and then, of course, that's been totally blown out of the water since then, but it worked, and I did it, and I stuck to my timeline and got everything in that I wanted to talk about. The hardest, definitely not the hardest to talk about, but the hardest episode to craft was the Eraserhead episode, and I did that over 3 or 4 weeks, and I knew because I did that because I knew it was going to be long, and so I recorded just small sections every day, and I would record and edit and be done with that section, and then the interview was a learning experience for me as far as getting it synced up properly and then edited. I had to edit a lot of noise out of my end on blank space. I mean, it just took a very long time to construct. It wasn't hard to talk about the movie. It was just a hard episode to manufacture. The hardest one to talk about, I probably wouldn't do an episode that was hard to talk about. So
there we go again. Do you still like doing it mostly on your own or having guests? Do you plan on having more guest appearances?
Yeah, this is important, and this is something that I want to talk about that came up in my mind as I did the Tenant episode, because I didn't search out a guest for that one. I wanted to do it on my own. When I decided that I was going to do it on my own, I felt relief for myself, and I realized that was because it's an extension of my introvertedness. Is that a word? Of being an introvert. I hadn't really considered that. And it may be why I don't actively pursue a lot of different people and kind of maybe create excuses for myself for not getting guests for every episode. And a lot of it's timing and scheduling and all that stuff is true too. But I do think that extends into this. I like doing things on my own. And I think all of us in our little family here, you and me and Mom, all have a touch of that. I probably have it the most, but there are times when I look around and when we're all at home and we're all in different rooms and we're all doing our own thing. And that doesn't mean that we don't like or love each other. We just like our own space and our own time. I think that maybe it took me a year to realize that is part of doing this show for me. It's something for me. Of course, I like talking to people about movies. I like talking to Ronnie. I've really enjoyed talking to Mike. I do want to have female guests on the show because those are the guest hosts on the projection booth that I enjoy the most. And it's why I like listening to the Faculty of Horror. And it's why I like listening to Kim and Ket Stay Alive, maybe. I really enjoy listening to that perspective and hearing that perspective, and I would like to have female guests on the show. That's my goal. But the other part of that is this kind of weird rule that podcasts should have a co-host or a guest, and I don't understand that, and I discussed that a little bit on the Pick Up a Podcast episode that I did. I don't know who came up with that rule, but add it to the list of things that I do incorrectly for the show, along with having a title that has no bearing on the genre that I've decided to talk about. Although I do think it's smart still, because I very well could change from horror movies to cult movies to other kinds of movies, so the title can stick and the subtitle gets changed. I'm pretending that I was looking ahead with that in mind. But yeah, I don't understand the concept that podcasts have to have more than one person jabberjawing away. Still, yes, I do plan on having guests. It'll happen when it happens. It helps the show to have someone that has another audience to bring them to your show, obviously. But, that's not the ultimate goal of this. I'm trying to learn that plays don't equal, success or anything. We'll get into that a little later, I think.
It's time for another tangent. What are your plans for the second year of Wake Up Heavy?
Well, one thing, and I think I've mentioned this, is to slow it down a little bit. So I want to take a break from doing weekly episodes, and that shouldn't be hard to do. It's just that if I stumble on something and get really excited about it, just to maybe write that down as a future episode. This just happened recently. A movie that I had been wanting to see for a long time called Vi, or maybe it's V-I-Y. It's a Russian film that I don't even remember now how I found out about it, but I put it on my watch list, and of course, Shudder ended up streaming it, and it actually showed up early. As far as I remember, it wasn't supposed to show up until the end of the last day of June. I saw an announcement that it was already up, and so I watched it, and I had a lot of fun with it. It's something that's right up my alley. The impulse was to do an episode on it, but I'm going to, sit on it for a while. One of the reasons why I maybe rush is that I don't know how long something's going to be streaming. And with Shudder, it could be, I think it's generally a month on special episodes like that. Some stuff stays longer, obviously, or on special movies like that. But they may lose it quickly, and it may not migrate to another service. So that's part of the push. But yeah, I want to hold off on that kind of immediate episode. Plus, it's hot as fuck here, and it's going to get worse. And I don't want to, especially during the summer, I don't want to be in here weekly for hours at a time, recording and then editing. It just becomes uncomfortable and miserable. That's the goal. Cut back on episodes. Maybe set up a schedule so that I can get guests when I want and have more of freedom to fit into their schedules. Those are the two main goals, I guess.
That's weird. Do you have movies in mind for the second year?
Well, the movies that I have kind of announced unofficially are John Carpenter's The Thing, George Romero's Martin, what am I forgetting? And Rosemary's Baby, since I'm did The Tenant, that will probably get pushed to season 3 or even further, I don't know. There's no real rush to do that. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's going to start getting harder to find those movies from childhood to talk about. So it's going to have to start extending into other areas. Maybe the format changes completely by then, after the second season. Yeah, I don't know. What movies? Actually, now that I think about it, there are some... I think I am hampering myself by trying to pick movies that maybe... Obviously, the horror community knows about all these movies, but maybe general movie fans and my friends, and I kind of have that audience in mind as well, to do things that aren't maybe as well known. But The Evil Dead was a pretty significant film when I finally saw it. When I finally watched A Nightmare on Elm Street, it struck a real major chord with me, and that was kind of later in the 80s, but still when I was a teenager and still had a major impact. So I can start picking those kinds of films that are more well known, probably have been discussed a lot more on other podcasts, but I mean, that's never been an issue with me. I don't mind doing that. There's always that personal touch to add to these films. I may not add anything to the academic, which isn't really my goal anyway, but it's the personal side. So I can take any movie that's been talked about to death and add my personal side to it. And that's, I think, what I enjoy so much about other people's podcasts. It's not so much the dissection of the movie, but how they came to it and their personal history with it. So, I mean, that's the whole point of this damn show.
There we go again. What has been the most rewarding part of creating Wake Up Heavy?
The most rewarding part is really just doing it. I think it was important for me, and the reason I started it was to have a hobby beside watching a movie, which is a very passive thing, something where I'm using my mind. I'm having to edit all of this, insert those silly little things like the Murder, She Wrote stuff or My Little Pony.
What are you even talking about?
Or little song clips, whatever. Just constructing an episode like I kind of liken it to what I used to do with the magazines and stuff and having to curate that. And so I'm curating my own thing here, using what I've said about it, using clips from the movies, using stuff that is not related to the movie for maybe a little funny aside or something, using your little clips that I like to use, like the tangent one and some of the other things. I was listening to the Phantasm episode a while ago, and I used a lot more of your little clips, and I need to start doing more of that. I know there's something where you say it's time for a break and other stuff like that. And we need to come up with some new ones as well for when I say stupid shit or...
There we go again.
But that's the reward for me, is just having something where I'm using not skills, but I'm using something that I'm not fully still comfortable with. I think it's like a puzzle, and I'm exercising my brain, and all that stuff I think is good for me instead of just sitting and watching movies. I mean, I wish I could say that it's the response that I've gotten or messages from people that's say that they've enjoyed it, whatever. That hasn't really happened. I don't mean to be selfish in my response, but really the reward has been just giving me something fun to do that has some aspect of technical difficulty for me, and just using my brain and not vegging out on the couch when I have free time.
I think it's time for a break. What is the ultimate goal of Wake Up Heavy?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I don't have any ulterior motives for the show. I don't have any higher aspirations. I'm not looking to get invited to do commentary tracks. If it happened somehow, I mean, I'd be surprised, but I wouldn't turn it down. It would depend on the movie, but that's not a goal for me. I don't have any plans on doing live shows at a movie festival or anything massive like that. That's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is just to have fun. This is, for me, it is a mainly selfish endeavor. And if, as I've said in the past, if 10 people listen, that's great. Obviously, I want as many people to listen to it as possible. That is a goal, to increase the audience, and that will happen over time. That will happen with other guests when that happens. I'm kind of happy to say that over the past 5 months, there hasn't been a day that's gone by that there haven't been plays of the show, and that's kind of mind-boggling to me. I don't have any... I can compare my show to other shows and their plays, but it's meaningless. Some shows have been around for 13 years or longer, 5 years, whatever, that have thousands of plays per episode. Maybe in the future that'll happen, but I can only compare the show to itself and previous plays. So in the first 7 months, there were quite often days with no plays, but in the last 5, there have been plays every day, and that to me is great. So that's a goal that I didn't necessarily set for myself, but that we reached after, a little more than half a year. And you can still help with that beyond ratings and reviews. And I've mentioned some of these things before. If you're on Facebook, if you're on Twitter, you can share. You can go to SoundCloud and you can share these things. You can share my posts. If we're friends on either of those platforms, you can most likely share Instagram posts. You can tell your friends, your family. If you want stickers to hand out, let me know and I'll send it. There's other ways to do this and it helps. This is the weird thing about podcasts and why there are 10 million of them out there. Something that I was frankly surprised about when I started in on this is as long as you have software, which you can get for free, and a hosting service, which is probably the main cost, at least for me, you don't have to pay any money to get on iTunes. You don't have to pay any money to get on Google Play or Spotify. Some of the other ones you do, but your hosting service is the major cost. It's not that big of a financial burden. If you're doing a show like a projection booth, I know that Mike spends a lot of money on other aspects of the show, which I don't do. So they can be costly. Mine isn't. And I'd like to keep it that way unless, some donations or money started pouring in somehow where that becomes an option. But still, ultimately, it's for me. That's the goal, to have fun and to hopefully get better. And I can tell that the show has gotten better as far as editing, as far as sound quality, just all that kind of minor technical stuff. I feel that it gets better, and hopefully the discussions get better and continue to get better. We'll see what happens, but there isn't any kind of side project that I'm looking to gain because of this. It's a hobby, and it's a hobby that you're able to, send out to the entire world, which is kind of mind-blowing, and which is kind of why I was surprised that it's really... Once you get an RSS feed, you can get it out there. That brings up an issue, though. I don't know what's going... iTunes is splitting up. It's going to be music, podcasts, and TV, which is how your phones are set up. If you have an iPhone, it's been that way for a while. I don't know what that means for podcasts, other than having a separate thing on your computer. It's probably not really that big of a deal. I don't know what that does for reviews and ratings and things like that. It's really neither here nor there right now for me, but I'm assuming that through Apple Podcasts, you can do the same thing. I'm pretty sure you can, actually. I tend to not listen. Most of the shows that I listen to, I kind of go to their page if they have a blog or if they have a host like I do with SoundCloud. I tend to go to that page and listen now. It seems to be a little bit easier. iTunes, I get dropped out all the time. So maybe the interface will actually be better when it's Apple Podcasts on your computer. So I don't know. Who knows? Who gives a shit?
That doesn't sound right. Who's listening to the show?
Well, this is what is kind of interest, at least to me. I don't know if anyone else will care about any of this, but like I said, you can get your show out to all corners of the world, and so it's nice to see that it's not just my hometown and not just the U.S. I've discovered new cities in America and Canada that I had no idea about. So thank you very much for listening. I'm just going to go through countries and then cities that have at least double-digit plays. Starting with the countries, and of course we've got the U.S. as number 1, UK, Canada, Spain, Ireland, Norway, Australia, which for some reason really tickles me, Mexico, Germany, Finland, Japan, Netherlands, Russian Federation, and France, with dozens of others with single-digit plays, etc. And then top cities, of course, is Fresno, and there'll be some other kind of very close cities in here as well, like Clovis, which is our sister city, Houston, Texas. And I think that's mainly because of that one person that listened to the Let's Scare Jessica to Death episode like 75 times for some reason. More power to you, man. Clovis, like I said, Los Angeles, California, Bakersfield, California, which is where some friends live, New York City, Reseda, California, Seattle, Washington, Mountain View, California, San Francisco, California, Dublin, Ireland, Sanger, California, Chicago, Illinois, Barcelona, Spain, Bristol, UK, Arlington, Virginia, Oslo, Norway. Hello, Oslo. Fowler, California, Portland, Oregon. Yay, Portland. That's where my mom lived for a long time, and we used to visit every summer for years. Toronto, Canada. Topeka, Kansas. Pomona, California. Southampton, UK. Troy, Michigan. Sacramento, California. Canada, Kanata. Kanata. They've been listening to quite a few episodes. Atlanta, Georgia. Miami, Florida. Shafter, California. That's pretty much Bakersfield, so probably my friends again, but who knows? Maybe there's another person over there that listens. Let's see, I lost my place. Melbourne, Florida. Joliet, Illinois. Brentwood, Tennessee. San Jose, California. London, UK. Brampton, Canada. Ashburn, VA. Linwood, Washington. St. Paul, Minnesota. And Long Beach, California. And then quite a few more in the single digits. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you want your city mentioned, then listen to a whole bunch of episodes. Well, Cleo, thank you so much for helping me out. I really do appreciate that. And maybe someday we'll do an actual episode together. Trying to think of a movie that we could watch where that would work. But since you are not a big... maybe someday you'll sit down and watch The Gremlins, and we can talk about that. I know you've had trouble getting through that one before, but you're getting older now. That is definitely a movie I saw when I was younger, and I have a kind of fun story about that, actually. Yeah, that would be interesting. I would like that. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for going through this year with me. If you've been here the whole time, if you're new, thank you for coming aboard and hopefully sticking around. I'm still, I'm open to suggestions for movies. I'm open to suggestions for guest hosts, either yourself or if you know someone that makes the circuit or has their own show that you like to listen to and you want to hear about their recollection of horror, if that's not specifically their what their show is about, let me know and I'll reach out to them. So, Stephen King episodes are still rattling around in my brain. I will get to them. Taking my time. Don't rush me. Don't want to overdo it. And then I have an idea that's going to require listener response, but hopefully it's something that will actually get people to write in. Not asking for ratings and reviews, questions or comments. So I'm not going to spill the beans on it now. I'm going to contact a couple people who I can kind of count on sending me something, and so I'll do a little preview or promo episode for that idea. And then I do have a Why Didn't I Rent This rattling around in my head, which will be the last one of this volume. I'm not going to announce the movie, just in case I change my mind. I did want to announce here at the end that August will be the end of season 2. And I know I only got 2 full-length episodes out, but I'm going to stick with the 6-month time frame here. This is probably totally contrary to something I said earlier in the show. Not this show, but in, sometime last year. It just, for me right now, makes more sense. So short season, this happens with TV shows. Sometimes they're 24 episodes, sometimes they're 18, but we'll just use time as opposed to number of episodes. And that way I don't feel forced to do something at any given point, which I don't really like. It's a hobby, this is my thing. So I'll do it how I see fit. So August will be the end of season 2. Season 3, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe the Tenet episode will come out and any of the other movies I mentioned. this new idea, all kind, Stephen King episodes, whatever. Let's just let it roll. Oh, and I need to thank Chris Reed, Sarago 17 for supplying new music. It's at the beginning, and I'll play out with it. I don't know if I'll have to test it within the episode itself to make sure that it isn't too distracting, but I really like this one. So thanks as always to Chris for throwing that stuff at me when he has a mind to. And I thank you all for listening. And do not forget to wake up heavy.
Murder, She Wrote rules.